Hey everyone, welcome to Penny's Mind Files Method, the podcast showing you where the off ramp to the healing highway is when you're stuck on the life sucks road to nowhere. This is my first official podcast, and if you like what you hear, I encourage you to check out some of my videos on my YouTube channel because they were designed to provide you with a visual explanation of the concepts of the Mind Files process, which is what we're going to be talking about on this podcast. You can find me on YouTube with the same channel name at Penny's Mind Files. So, who am I and why should you take the time to listen? Well, I'm nobody special. I'm just a person who's been there, done that. I've lived through a fair amount of abuse and trauma. But most importantly, I've worked my way through the healing process and I've come out the other side a genuine, loving person, which is pretty incredible if you consider what I've lived through. I'm no expert. I don't even know what an expert is, but I know that a lot of people seem to think that they are, and there's loads of people who believe in them. That's okay. I don't have a bunch of fancy letters behind my name. I have some, but they don't really matter. Not a millionaire, don't live in a mansion. I do have a cool car though. But what I do have and what does matter is I've learned a thing or two in my personal healing journey, and I'm here to share what I've learned with you. So, if healing is important to you, if you are ready to embark on your healing journey from whatever it is that happened that hurt you or wounded you or damaged you, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression or anger, then this might be the podcast for you. I grew up in a lot of dysfunction and in a family haunted by generational trauma. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about my life on this podcast. If you're interested in my messed up childhood, you can buy the book. It's called ACEs High, A Memoir of Trauma Recovery and Emotional Resilience. You can get it from a variety of ebook retailers, and you can get the paperback version on Amazon. Hopefully more uh, retailers will be available in the new year. So yeah, I've been there, done that. Needless to say, I didn't get a lot of healthy advice growing up. I got the occasional wisdom nugget, but they were always presented in such a way that felt more like a warning, do this or else. My dad was a really fear-driven guy who never healed from his childhood wounds, which is why he passed on those generational bad behaviors to us kids. My mom was the same. I think most people choose to ignore their past, which is why generational trauma keeps getting passed on. But there's also, I think, a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to things like the golden rule, treat people as you would have them treat you. And there's a lot of misinterpretations of sacred teachings, especially in the self-help community. But ultimately, you know what? It all comes down to what you believe truth to be. Anyways, those of us who grew up in high levels of family dysfunction, which ultimately almost always result in some kind of abuse, we share an understanding of pain and heartbreak and disappointment and betrayal that people who didn't grow up in that kind of environment or who didn't experience those things simply just don't get. And there's also levels of dysfunction. So if you, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you grew up in a level 2, you can't relate to somebody who grew up in a level 8 or 9 or 10. And that's why, that's why my opinion about experts is that most are book educated and not life educated. So they don't relate to us in the same way that we can relate to one another. That's why 12-step groups work the best for people who want to stop drinking or doing drugs or whatever their addiction is, because everybody in that group has been there, done that, whatever it is that they're trying to heal from. So they relate to one another in a different and more authentic way, I think. Now, there's a whole bunch of folks in the mind, body, spirit healing community who are fantastic, but they're so far down the healing highway that they've forgotten what it feels like to be living in the muck of abuse and dysfunction. I made that same mistake back in 2018 when I wrote Mind Files. I was at like mile marker 500, forgetting that people who were reading the book were at mile marker like 10. When you have to work really hard, like really struggle to climb out of that muck, that darkness that surrounds all of us who were emotionally and physically abused, when you finally reach that light, when you're living in that peace, you carry with you a kind of wisdom that can't be learned in a book. It's a wisdom that you're not going to find in the halls of academia where the experts roam, and there's a reason why. And that reason is because when you've made the decision to quit being angry and to let go of the anger and maybe even the rage and the hate and to get off that victim roller coaster, the desire to heal is 200 times stronger for you than for a person who is going into college with good intentions to help others. Theirs is something at like, maybe 10 times their desire, right? And their desire is often coming from a mind file that talks about nobody being there for them. So they want to be that person for somebody else. Now, occasionally, there's one based in somebody's going into college with a mind file based from gratitude that says, hey, somebody was there for me when I was growing up, and I want to be that person for whoever growing up. And that's great. But more often not, no matter which side of which mind file, the person didn't work through their life shit first. So they're either A, teaching you somebody else's idea of healing, and who knows what that person has done or didn't do, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. Or worse yet, they're going to teach you how to stay stuck in the victim muck. You see, desire is the ultimate driver in this universe. So in this podcast, my intent is to teach you what I've learned, to give you tools so that you can help yourself. I'm not suggesting that you forego therapy or discount what your doctor told you, just to consider what I've learned, and you can take it or leave it. My journey was a long one. It was almost 30 years. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and find healing a whole lot sooner than I did. I wholeheartedly believe that when it comes to healing, the only expert is you. You're the expert of you, nobody else, which means you have to figure out how to use the tools of healing for your benefit. So what I did is I created the Mind Files method to help you do just that. Back in 2018, like I said, when I wrote Mind Files, I wrote it from too far down the healing highway. So I only touched on the beginning steps of healing. And that was my mistake. Now, a lot has happened between publishing that book and now. And we might talk about some of those things along the way in this podcast. But more importantly, we're really going to dive into the Mind Files process and work through some specific mind files that deal with archetypal wounds like shame and guilt and abandonment. And occasionally we'll talk about the mind-body connection. What you will hear a lot, because this is the most important part of healing, is we're going to talk a lot about God's role in your healing process. Healing requires you being willing to form a partnership with God, however you choose right now to understand him or her, or it, or however you're defining God. Because I'm here to tell you that without God, there's no healing. Sorry, not sorry. We'll talk about what God is and what he isn't. And we'll also talk about some mind files surrounding God and religion and Jesus. And you might be surprised at what you're going to learn here. There's a few visual discussions on my YouTube channel about that. So you might want to go have a gander so you kind of know what direction we're going with that. Eventually, you'll hopefully come to understand, as I did, that the things that we want from people, like unconditional love and genuine acceptance, we can't get that from people. We can only get those things from God. So, welcome to Penny's Mind Files Method podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you learn something useful, be generous. Hit that share button. Hit the thumbs up. Those little acts just might help others find their way to that podcast, and maybe they'll find a bit of healing. That's it for the introduction to this show. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.